Good morning, everyone. Omen, thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm very humbled to be here at MilMoneyCon, my very first time to be here with my people and to be a part of this brain trust. It's very intimidating because I know all of you have more knowledge in so many areas than I ever did. And so when I thought about coming here as a brand new firm owner, I wanted to keep my budget down, and I thought, well, I need to pitch to be a speaker because then I get a free entry to be coming here. What can I share with all of these people that have so much knowledge that would add value to you? And so this is what I came up with. So I hope that this adds a little bit of value to your journey through financial services. Whoa, my buttons aren't working. Okay, here we go. So there's no secret to media mentions. The journalists, the media, they need what you have. That's the bottom line to all of this. So I want, if you take nothing away from this, understand that you have something that they need. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But I'm going to give you some tips and tricks and tools for how to succeed on this journey. So here's our agenda, and this is what we're going to work through. I'm going to share my journey, and I'm going to be very transparent. I'm going to share my failures. I'm going to share my insecurities. I'm going to share my successes, and I'm going to talk through all of that. I'm going to talk, and I'm going to show you my 5-year chart when I started, what that looks like. I'm going to tell you what I think the secret sauce is, and I will continue to go through the tools from the pay to play to some of those local media, the memberships, help a reporter out, getting paid to play. I'm going to talk about the first time that I actually got paid for the media input that I shared. Again, those tips and tricks, and then we'll get to conclusions. So in 2019, in July, I passed the CFP exam. Thank you. I was in my late 40s, and I thought, my goodness gracious, that was a hill too far to climb. And then in October, I became a certified financial planner professional. And so here I am, a brand new CFP, and I thought, nobody knows who I am. Nobody gives me any more credibility than the CFP marks carry, and that's a whole other discussion right now, isn't it? But I wanted to be able to build my brand, build my credibility, and if I'm being totally frank, kind of give myself a little bit of confidence. And so this was something that I selected for my own journey. And so my first pitch was on October 29th, and I went through the Help a Reporter Out website, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, and I pitched anonymous. I'll talk about that too. And the topic was business women with inspiring stories of success. For the military spouses in the room, am I the ideal candidate for a businesswoman with an inspiring story of success? I just passed the CFP exam and I'm a military spouse. Like, shouldn't they have accepted my pitch? They did not, okay? They did not accept that pitch. And in fact, hello, here we go. And in fact, in 2019, I did 8 pitches in those last 2 months, and I got 0 features, but it didn't stop me, okay? So the bars are the pitches, and the line are the features. And so you see what my journey over 5 years looked like. But in 2020, and for the statisticians in the room, 2020 is the anomaly in all statistics, no matter what it is that you're looking at, right? 2020, I'd already watched all of the Office episodes on Netflix, and I thought, okay, let's put my foot on the gas and do some more pitches. And in 2020, I got my first feature, and it was with OpU. Anybody ever heard of OpU? No, me neither, yeah. But I got it. It's actually a blog from Synchrony Bank. I got it, and I thought, yay me, but I wanted something more. And so I continued on my journey, and I got U.S. News and World Report, Her Money, Investment News, CNBC, and the Tampa Bay Business Journal. So I got my foot in the door. Those are some pretty reputable names there. And honestly, my favorite one was Her Money, because I love supporting women, and those were my people. So I was very excited about this, but I thought I could do more. 2021, of course, we were all back to work, and in fact, I was doing a leadership program. So you can see fewer pitches, but the same number of features. And I took a little different tactic in 2021, and I did not just short pitches, but I wrote full articles. And there's some publications that allow you to do that. Rethinking 65, I wrote 3 different articles, and many of them were military focused at the time. I also wrote a couple of articles for Retirement Daily, and I got featured in Yahoo Finance, another one that I was pretty excited about. So you can see a little bit less effort, but the same return on investment in 2021. Then in 2022, the New York Times. Now, that was really exciting for me, but let me tell you that story. The New York Times feature was about passive income. And so I wrote this whole thing about how in 2020, do you remember there was all the GameStop and the Robinhood conversation that everybody was talking about? Well, at the time, my kids, I have 2 sons, they were in college. And so they were reading Reddit and all the things, and they were constantly asking me, Mom, tell me what this means, what was happening with GameStop. Mom, what's this Robinhood thing? Explain this to me. So I was having these conversations with my sons, who were pretty savvy in money, but a little less savvy in investments. And so these were great conversations and opportunities for my kids to begin to understand investing. And they were telling their friends, Mrs. Miller, tell me what you told your sons about Robinhood and GameStop. And so we were continuing these conversations. And I shared this story to the New York Times reporter, and she was very intrigued by this story. So when I sent this pitch to her, she wanted to speak to my sons. I thought, but I'm the CFP. I've got all the wisdom in here. And oh, by the way, okay, let me see if they'll talk to you. So I called my older son. He was like, hard pass, Mom, no. Remember, they're both in college. My younger son, a little bit more, my friend said, okay, Mom. He was an engineering student and a student athlete at Georgia Tech, and I kind of had to bribe him, let's be frank. And so he agreed to speak to the journalist, and the majority of that article was about his perspective about passive income, but of course that a lot of that came from his mom, the CFP. But I can now say, as featured in the New York Times, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, okay? So that was my feature in the New York Times, and you can see some other things. And in 2023, my ultimate goal, the Wall Street Journal, okay? And I'll tell you, it was a little disappointing too. Because, again, I'm like, I'm the smartest person on earth. Of course, you should be featuring me prominently in this article. But it wasn't quite like that. So you can see there's a number of other features. And in 2023, there are actually more pitches. And that's, again, because of the factors that were going on in my life at that time. I was in the process of leaving a firm where I was a partner. And I had a period of 6 months where, thank you very much, Florida, it takes forever to register the new firm. And so I had loads of time, and I thought, well, let me do some more pitches, and because I need to get more brand awareness, more credibility for the new firm that I'm launching in 2024. So you'll see some other things. At the top, Some Dude's Blog, okay? So remember that first pitch that I did to Anonymous? Well, I had pitched Anonymous again, and it was Some Dude's Blog. And so I wrote basically an article for Some Dude's Blog. I gave him credibility and him brand awareness. So hard pass on the Anonymous for me from now on. you be you, but I'm not doing anonymous anymore. You can also see Kitsis, and I'm going to talk about Kitsis in a few minutes. So that was another big win for me. And there's a number of other things in there, but 2023 was very exciting because I hit the gold mine. That was my goal, that Wall Street Journal. Now, Omen had asked if you have any questions to put your questions in the Whova app. There's also a poll in there. So if you would like to put in the poll, what is your ideal media publication or place where you would like to be featured? I will read them at the end when we do the questions, okay? So for me, it was the Wall Street Journal, and I achieved that. It was very exciting. So 2024, the beginning, I am unemployed, about to launch my new firm, and you can see I backed off because I'm launching a new firm. So those of you who have launched a new firm know you're doing all the things. It's very confusing. But my return on the investment that I put in, because we'll talk about the secrets to success, was much better. Another feature in the Wall Street Journal, and this one for me was a gold mine because it was about spousal IRAs. For the military spouses in the room, like, if there's an expert on spousal IRAs, it's me. But I had something a little bit different because usually spousal IRAs are for the homemakers or the caretakers, right? Those periods when you're not working. But it was a little different for me because I was working, but it was because I was an entrepreneur and I was losing money as fast as I could spend it. So it was a little bit different take, and they were excited about that. The journalist was thrilled about it. The editors, not so much. So the original draft, it was all about Stacy, and I couldn't wait for it to come out. Then the editors came back, and they left me with one sentence quote, and it wasn't even a terrific sentence. But guess what? I'm still featured in the Wall Street Journal for a second time. It doesn't matter. Again, you can see all of the other publications, and you'll see LinkedIn Daily, a spoof. So here's another story. LinkedIn Daily, I thought, oh my gosh, yes, I want to be featured in LinkedIn. All of the people on LinkedIn will see my wisdom on, it was financial self-care. So I wrote a whole article on financial self-care, and LinkedIn is going to share it. LinkedIn, like, big LinkedIn is going to share it because that's what it says, LinkedIn Daily. But it was actually a spoof of LinkedIn, right? I don't know what it was. The website's gone. I hadn't done my due diligence, but I had written this great, incredible thing. But here's what happened. NerdWallet, a little while later, a journalist asked a question about financial self-care. I've already got this great content. And so, blam, I copy and paste it and send it to them. And I had an incredible feature in NerdWallet, which was syndicated hundreds of times in newspapers across the country. So, LinkedIn Daily, blah. But it was the incentive that I needed, or the opportunity that I needed to get that word out and to get that content creation out across the globe. So that's my journey, and I shared with you some of my successes and some of my failures, and I still have goals and I still want more, but it's been a very successful and fun journey along the way. So what is the secret sauce? What are the things that have helped me along the way? Number one, it's effort. And you can see, based on this, the more effort I put in, the more return on investment I got. Fair? Number two, practice makes progress. Any perfectionists in the room? Yeah, me too. I'm a perfectionist. But I have to take that perfectionism and put it over there. Practice makes progress. And I promise you, remember those first 8 pitches were a 0? Practice makes progress. So I've learned so much on this journey, and so this is something I truly believe in. Number 3, credibility and brand awareness. Now, this is the point of why we're doing this, but this is also part of the secret sauce, because as I was building credibility, I could use it to leverage the next pitch and the next pitch, right? I couldn't use that OpU and say, as featured in OpU, that wasn't helpful, but that first US News and World Report I could use to get the next one, okay? So using that credibility and brand awareness to build on is really important. And then stories. And I think I've shared some of the stories, right? These journalists are writing every day about the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. Every day they're writing about the same stuff over and over again. They want something that's going to make their article different than everybody else's. They want that story. That's why they wanted to talk to my sons. That's why they wanted to know about my spousal IRA journey and how it was different. The stories that make their work stand out from their peers. Because remember, they need the material. So let's talk about the tools and how we get there. And I'm going to start with the pay to play. You can hire a communications and PR firm. I did not do that, but I actually hired a communications and PR firm to do something different. I hired them to help me do a webinar, an online webinar, for the first time, because I didn't know how to, I didn't want to be doing a speaking engagement and figure out how to do Zoom and do the marketing, and so I asked for their help. Well, while they were helping me do this, they had some incoming pitches that they were fielding that were in the military and veteran space, so they threw them my way. So kind of a side benefit. So you can absolutely hire a marketing and PR firm. Not inexpensive, but it's an opportunity, and they are your advocates. They are going out and saying, so-and-so is really terrific, you should talk to them. Then you can see quoted, featured, and Press Pulse, and there's a million others where you can pay a service to be featured. And journalists are on the one end and you're on the other end, and you can see some of them allow you a couple of pitches every month. And if you want to do more, you have to pay to be a part of that subscription service. Go to your local media. They're the ones that really, really need you. So I was featured in the Tampa Bay Business Journal, and sometimes in your local media they have sponsored content, but I did a guest post there. It was Women's History Month, and so I did a women in wealth kind of piece, and they were happy to have that feature. They need your content, okay? By the way, these slides are already in the Whova app, okay? Help a reporter out, HARO. So this went away for a little while because they didn't have funding, but it came back on April 22nd. And it's still gaining traction with the reporters. So the journalists are coming back and doing more pitches. But this is the first source that I ever used. Remember, for that business, women, success, remember all that. And I still use it today. And they have not, it's not just for personal finance or anything. It is for all kinds of things. And don't just look in the business and finance section. Like, look in the travel section, because sometimes there's questions about money and travel, and so they don't have it necessarily in there. So there's definitely some great opportunities, and that's free to use. Now, there's a number of memberships that you may be affiliated with, and you might not be taking advantage of some real gold mine opportunities. Financial Planning Association is by far my favorite media membership, okay? It's called FPA Media Source. You must be an FPA member in good standing. You must be a CFP professional, and you have to complete a 1-hour training. And they just rolled over 9,000 media queries. Like I said, they are, in my opinion, leading the pack on all the memberships as far as media pitches, and they go straight to my inbox. So I get these pitches all day, every day, if I want them. And I need to slow the roll there. I need to do a little email management. Who was I talking to about that earlier this week? But anyway, if you have questions, you can contact Ben if you're a member and you want to join that. NAPFA Advisors Bureau, you must be a NAPFA registered advisor, which by default means you're a CFP. And if you are a NAPFA member and you want to get this direct to your inbox, you scan this Google Doc, and very simple information, and it will get you on their list. Again, direct to your inbox. XYPN has a media forum. It's internal on their website. You must be a member of XYPN, and you must be fee only. No CFP requirement here. And when you join the media forum, there's instructions in there about how to get it to go direct to your inbox as well. So what's important about having it come direct to your inbox is because these reporters sometimes have a deadline that's like hours. So you want to be the first and get in there under the deadline. AFCPE has media opportunities if you're either a member of AFCPE or if you are an AFC. The priority goes to the membership, but sometimes the membership doesn't have what they need, and they will go outside to the membership and go to the AFCs. But in order for them to know that the AFCs that are not a part of the membership want to participate, you have to reach out to communications@afcpe.org. And I said, or go to the booth, but I think the booths are broken down now. So, anyway, but Heidi's here. Where's Heidi? There you are. And you can talk to Heidi. Wealth Tender is another one. They have media requests as well, and you just need to be a member of Wealth Tender. You have to pay for that membership, again, like the rest of these memberships, but not to be a part of the media. So, getting paid to be in the media was something new and interesting, and this is a intimidating story, I'm going to tell you, to be frank, okay? So, I was featured in Kitsis. It's a TSP publication that I wrote. In 2022, everyone knows the TSP went through some changes. And they lost a lot of beneficiary information. They added the mutual fund window. And I wasn't connected to this amazing community at that time. And I thought, well, first I looked at my husband's, TSP beneficiaries were in fact missing, and I, had verified all of this. And I had a pretty good knowledge of the TSP, and I was a CFP, and I thought, well, how do I communicate this information, this new information about the TSP that is not being communicated very well to service members and veterans? How do I communicate this to as many people as possible? That was my goal. And I thought, well, if we could communicate to as many advisors as possible, then they could communicate to as many service members and veterans as possible. How could I do that? So I went to the Kitsis website, Nerd's Eye View, and you can see there, submit guest post. And I did that, and I thought, well, this is never going to work. Michael Kitsis is never going to accept one of my pitches, but let's give it a try because I want to communicate this message. Everybody needs to know that their beneficiaries might be gone. The client that Oman mentioned I fired, they don't have any beneficiaries listed, but that's up to them to figure out now. So I submitted a guest post, and here's the process. You have to submit a guest author completes the outline. You submit the outline. And then they send you back edits to the outline. And then you send it back again. As you imagine, Kitsis is no joke. So the outline, you go back and forth and back and forth. And then they either accept it or reject it. And I thought, the outline took me hours and hours and hours. And then editing, and I thought, well, it's going to get rejected anyway, so why am I bothering? But I did, because that was my mission, to communicate this message to as many people as possible. They accepted it. And then I had to write the piece. Oh, my. And then Michael Kitces' editors had to edit that piece, and then he had to edit that piece. It took 4 to 6 months, okay? But they paid me for it, and it's published on the website. You can see it now. I'm still intimidated to this day every time I think about it, but the information is there, and it's probably out of date. I don't even look at it anymore. You understand my goal, right? They paid me $1,000 to do it. I probably earned $40,000 in the work that I put into it, because I dug into every nook and cranny to make sure I understood it. And they took me in a slightly different direction. My initial direction was, TSP is a hot mess, let me tell you why. That wasn't the direction that they wanted to be in, right? They were a lot more diplomatic and information-bearing, as Kitces is. But anyway, so here I was, right? That's one of the culminations. I got paid for my writing. I'm a math girl. I couldn't believe someone paid me for my writing. And that editing process was overwhelming. For those of you that have written books, that editing process is no joke. But it was a learning experience. The work was so much better afterward, and I got paid for it. So something that I'm really proud of. So let's talk about the tips and tricks. And how am I on time? Good, okay. Tip number 1, keep a log of every request and pitch. I have a 200-page Google document. Every pitch, every response that I've ever sent, and I just keep adding to it, because it's really important to have all of that information. And anytime I'm featured, I put the link in there. It's great for compliance. It's great for, when I want to remember something. It's just great. Just keep a log. And initially I had like a log for this year and a log for that year, but then I'd have to go and find the different files. Just keep it all in one long running log. Great. By the way, most of these tips and tricks and all of this I've gotten from other people in the community. Be prompt in replying, right? That NerdWallet, if I didn't have that financial self-care thing already written for that LinkedIn daily spoof and couldn't just be like blam and send it to them, then they wouldn't have been featured so prominently in that publication. So be prompt in replying. They're on a deadline, and maybe the deadline's in 3 days. So if you're like, oh, well, the deadline's in 3 days, let me wait until 2 more days, they might get something better in the interim. Be original, share a story. I think I've talked about that a number of times, right? There's always the same difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. They need something unique to make their material stand out. Share verifiable resources and data. My focus is on women, widows, and military-connected families. And one of the data pieces that I share sometimes is that 80% of women die single. It's one of those shocking statistics that kind of makes you do a double take. And so anytime I share a piece of data like that, I share where I got that information. I didn't just pull it out of my ear. And that saves them, that gives me credibility, and that saves them having to go find, well, where did she get that information? If you share some IRS data or anything like that, share where you got that from, because you're saving them work. And they're going to say, thank you so much for doing that. They're going to appreciate that, and they're more likely to use your information. You're building a relationship with these journalists. If at first you don't succeed, try again, right? If I had quit after 2019 and my first 8 zeros, then I wouldn't be here talking today. Stay compliant. I'm my firm's chief compliance officer, but I'm very fortunate to have had a compliance officer in my previous firm that was terrific. And she gave me some great guidelines about what not to say. Never share anything about returns, never say never, never say always, and some other great feedback. So she was very helpful in that way. Set up Google alerts. Many times I've done a pitch and I'm like, I wonder if they ever published that article. I wonder if they ever featured me. And so I set up Google alerts. And Stacy Miller is kind of a common name. And so it's a little bit harder for me. If you have a more unique name, it's a little bit easier. But I do Stacy Miller Tampa, Stacy Miller Bayview, Stacy Miller CFP. I've got a whole bunch of Google alerts. And so anytime I'm featured, it comes up in a Google alert. And so, oh, look, this thing I pitched a month ago, boop, here it is in my inbox showing up. And then every once in a while, I'll go back to that 200-page running document, and I'll get the journalist's name and the topic and put my name and put that in Google and find other things that Google, the Google alerts missed as well. So you want to know when you get featured. And the journalists aren't taking the time to say, "Dear Stacy, thank you so much for writing that super awesome information. Here's the link to what I wrote, and again, thanks so much. You're the best ever, hearts," journalist. So you wish that they did that, but they don't. Leverage your newfound credibility and brand awareness. And I talked about that from as you're building, sharing that with the next pitch. But what about sharing that with your community? The whole point of this is to build brand awareness and credibility. So if you're doing it, share on social media. I was featured in the New York Times, people. It was on my social media. It's on my website. Put it all over the place. Put a billboard. I don't care what you do. This is the point of it. Don't be shy. This is the whole point of it. Reuse what you've written. I've talked about that obviously already with the Nerd Wallet, right? I can't tell you how many times, how many pitches have come through about what to do with your cash. Okay? There's only so many things you can do with your cash. I've written it and I cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. Sometimes it gets accepted, sometimes it doesn't. But, maybe you have a unique take on it. Great. Share that. But sometimes they just want the same old, because there's new readers every day that need that same old as well. So share and reuse. Do your due diligence. Okay, don't share to LinkedIn daily. So I saved you that one. But if you're unfamiliar with the publication, make sure that you are familiar. Go and look and check it out. Do you want to be featured there? Okay, there's some that you know, but make sure you want to be featured where you're pitching. Do your due diligence. Make sure you understand what you're doing. Learn from my mistakes. Connect with your journalists. Journalists are people too. What is that commercial? I'm probably older than most of you, so when I was little, it was kids are people too. Journalists want to have relationships, just like we're building relationships here. Journalists want those relationships too. They want their job to be easier. Journalists connect with me directly now because I've built relationships. They know that I'm a trustworthy source. They know that I have information that they need, that they can just, "Hey, Stacy, can you give me a quick quote on this?" Sure, bing, because I've got that 200-page document I can cut and paste. It's, super simple a lot of times. So connect with your journalists. When you share on social media, "Hey, I've been featured in, military.com. Thanks, so-and-so journalist, for featuring me." They want the credibility and brand awareness too. They're trying to build their own brand as journalists as well. So really important that you do that. And keep writing. Keep writing. Maybe you want to be featured not just as a written feature. Maybe you want to be in TV or radio, podcasts, all the things, whatever it is. Keep doing it. So I talked about share and share alike. And I'm the last person in the world to talk about SEO or AEO or any of those things, but I have smart people. And so I have all of these things linked on my website, because if external links going to my website is number one, the other links going out is secondary to it, and internal links or whatever. So a lot of these things are linked from my website, so that it helps build my brand credibility. You know, when a prospect comes to my website, oh, look at all this stuff. Oh, Stacy, oh, yeah, okay. But also that linkage helps the Google algorithms or something. Say that again? SEO, yes. So again, I want to circle back around to the secret sauce. Put in the effort, and you will succeed. Practice makes progress. Credibility and brand awareness. They are the original point for why we're doing this, but you've got to utilize them along the way as well. And then stories, stories, stories. So thank you so much to Lacey and her team for allowing me to be here. I hope you got a couple of nuggets to help you succeed. And please let me know when you get featured in your favorite publication. So if you have any questions, hopefully you put them in the app, and Omen will, okay, great. So, awesome.
What did I tell you, everybody? Awesome, right? All right, if you have some questions, we are definitely not going to have time for all of these, but let's get to as many as we can. All right, number one, what return? Let's see here. Yeah, what return are you looking for, or how do you define a successful post or mention?
Hard to define what I determine, what I call a success. Early in the days, I had goals that, like the Wall Street Journal, that I wanted to achieve. But I want to be, now how I define success is I want to be in front of the eyes of my prospective clients. So that's what my current goal is. And so I'm turning my attention away from the industry publications, because most of my prospective clients are not reading the Wall Street Journal. They're reading something new. So hypothetically, the June issue of AARP magazine, I'm going to be featured in the How to Be Financially Prepared for Hurricanes article, and I live in Florida. Those are my people, and that's 38 million homes that's going to be delivered to. So that's kind of how I'm transitioning from kind of the brand awareness and credibility to the success for me now is being in front of the people that are my prospective clients.
Next question, how many clients have you gotten from media mentions?
Really hard to define. So my previous firm, I was an institutional asset manager. So it was more about, there's no direct line there. But in my new firm, I'm like rocking 10 whole clients now. So I think it's one of the touches. You have to have, like 10 or 20 or 30 touches before a client ever, signs an agreement. It's an important touch along the way. But I absolutely have prospects that say, on my intake form, I read an article that you wrote, and so I've had prospects come through. The conversion rate, much like the return on investment, pitch to feature, the conversion rate is going to get better. It's a work in progress.
Okay. If a journalist reaches out to you for something specific, should you be writing an article for them or simply answer their questions?
A little bit of both. Certainly answer their questions, but if you have something to add outside of what they're directly asking, then absolutely share that, because they want something unique that's different and better than what their peers are sharing. So if you have some unique take on it, they absolutely want that, definitely.
Awesome. Have you seen a decrease in journalists leading articles with the rise of AI?
No, journalists recognize that AI is a thing, and so they're obviously on the lookout for the people that are just, sending them AI copy, and so they're really looking for that authentic voice. And yeah, journalists absolutely, they're still wanting to have that authentic voice. Everybody's battling the AI bot, I think, for information, but the journalists with integrity are looking for the authentic voice as well. So,
what percentage of your pitches are cold versus a response to a query from a reporter or service like Harrow or XY or NAPA?
I did a few cold pitches. That wasn't my favorite plan. My very first cold pitch was rejected, and then that journalist wrote an article about that exact thing in the Wall Street Journal, I'm just saying. And so I didn't love cold pitches personally, but there's a lot of really unique, like the speaker ideas, or what was the thing that, the make your point, like those would be great pitches for journalists, I think. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities. That was not my particular jam. Yeah.
Let's see here. Probably the last question here we have. We tell our clients not to pay too much attention to the financial media, and at the same time, we expend effort to get mentions in that same financial media.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, finfluencers, that for me, it's a never-ending battle is between finfluencers, and that's why for me personally, having the CFP marks, that was really important. I know a lot of you have the AFC marks. You know, whatever your own personal education and experience and your own credibility, it's really important that you share that. You're not Joe Snuffy, that just had, you know, a dead experience and is has 47 million followers and is, you know, touting your information. You have experience. You're a veteran, a service member, a spouse, and you have some financial services experience, background, education experience. It's important that you combine those two and share that as well as being a viable and credible source for that reason.
All right. That is all the time we have for questions. There are a lot more questions on here, so I'm sure you're going to be able to find Stacy somewhere out in the halls.
Yep, I'm here until tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.